Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Kizito. Good evening. On Spectrum tonight, what is the latest about the tax measures announced by government in the national budget? The Finance Committee of Parliament is currently scrutinizing the several tax amendment bills that seek to operationalize the tax collection measures proposed by government in the national budget. Finance Minister Maria Chionka announced the measures that included, among others, reinstating the 18% VAT or value-added tax on piped water, a 10% charge for those earning about 120 million shillings a year, taxes on sports betting, spirits, perfumes, and cosmetics, among others. The minister also raised the pay-as-you-earn threshold to 235,000 shillings from 130,000 shillings previously. Legislators are now handling Income Tax Amendments Bill, the Value-Added Tax Amendments Bill, the Finance Act Amendments Bill, the Excise Tariff Amendment Bill, and the East African Amendment Bill. These bills must be passed by Parliament before the tax measures are implemented. The committee has proposed a number of changes, including the removal of VAT on water. Uganda Revenue Authority will be the final agency to implement the tax measures, and it has been part of the team from the Ministry of Finance meeting with MPs over this matter. The world over, there are guiding principles about taxation, but one of the critical aspects is that taxes should be fair and easy to administer. So tonight we will get an update about what is happening about the tax measures, who they will affect, and if at all, there are changes likely to be made. Our guests tonight, Ms. Doris Akol, Commissioner, Legal and Board Affairs at the Uganda Revenue Authority. You're most welcome, Madam Akol.
Thank you very much. Good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mr. Jamil Senyonjo, Supervisor, Communications and Relations at the same URA.
Good evening, listeners, and you're welcome to this program.
We're also joined by Mr. Ephraim Ssentamu Kaddu, Secretary General at KACITA. You're most welcome, Mr. Kaddu.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Doris, could you outline for us the new tax measures being considered?
Thank you. We have a number of bills, like you mentioned in your introduction. We have the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Value-Added Tax Amendment Bill, Excise Tariff Amendment Bill, the Finance Act Amendment Bill, Finance Act of 2006 Amendment Bill, as well as the East African Excise Management Amendment Bill. So those are the 5 bills that were presented to Parliament for consideration.
And why were they not included in the budget?
Typically, the budget will only give policy pronouncements. Now, the policy pronouncements are implemented through tax laws. The tax laws, the kind of parliamentary system we have, the tax bill is presented first and then it is debated and then it becomes a tax law. When it is passed by Parliament, it becomes the act thereafter. So the tax bills simply put into, call it legislative language, what the policy pronouncements in the budget were made.
So these are not new tax measures, this is only the actualization of what we had
Absolutely,
in June.
Yeah. These are the actualization of the policy proposals that were made in June.
Will the tax on water be removed?
There is still debate on whether it will be removed. Studies are being done on whether the revenue that would be generated will be detrimental perhaps to the water users, because I think that's where a lot of the uproar, if I may use that word, is coming from. But it also has to be, the debate has to factor in the fact that government needs revenue to implement the budget. So that kind of delicate balance is what is informing the debate on the tax on water.
Jamil, could you try to justify for us this tax on water? Are you taxing the poor or are you taxing the rich? And if you're taxing the rich, because some people say they're the ones that have piped water, how do the poor benefit?
Thank you. The genesis of this, I think, is the balancing of input and output. You will realize that some taxpayers out there use water as an input. For example, producers of beverages sodas, soft drinks, and beers. They use water. So this water, if you don't levy the VAT at 18%, that means they lose the input, and they will be expected to charge output at 18%. So to allow them input tax, it was necessary to introduce VAT on water. And secondly, the consumption of water in this country, relatively, the price is low, such that the VAT component is not that high. In my opinion, if we are to promote these other factories that are involved in production of, say, soft drinks, or which use water as an input, it is important that we allow them input tax on that item.
Justify the statement that's a tax on rich people.
A tax on rich people?
Well, some people think it's the rich who have piped water, filling their swimming pools, among other things.
I wouldn't say that, because you know one thing, VAT is a consumption tax to begin with. The consumption tax, it targets the consumer. So consumers for water are not necessarily the rich. You get? So it could be the poor or the rich that are consuming this water. But again, we are also looking at who are our conduits in collection of these taxes. Of course, Nile Breweries is one of the conduits. It collects tax on behalf of government. It is not the taxpayer. The consumer are the people that drink the
people
beer.
we see in the bars in the evening.
Exactly. So we are targeting them. But if we are going to be fair to Nile Breweries, it is only fair that we allow them input tax on the piped water that they use in the production of the beer.
So it's a tax for everyone. So why do you tax the poor in the end? Some people will still say that. You used to have this tax, you did this discount on water bought from commercial places. In the past, we had those pipes.
I actually believe
that's all
that,
public stand pipes.
I actually believe that a good number of our people who are poor in rural areas may actually not even be using piped water. A good number of them get water from the wells, others are from boreholes, and there is hardly any VAT on that water.
Oh,
we are looking at piped water.
So it doesn't quite affect
the water that is under the control of National Water and Sewerage Corporation.
Well, I'd like us to talk about the pay threshold being raised, whether you lose money there or not. Of course, we are supposed to collect 24 billion shillings, and you don't from water, and that's not money you want to lose at any rate.
But you know that there has been generally an outcry that the poor continue to pay taxes, and even me, I feel the pinch with the pay threshold.
We'll talk about that maybe later. Let's first deal with water. Mr. Kaddu, is this a tax that you traders support? Taxes on water, the VAT on water?
It's not in the interest of the masses. First of all, I would like to observe that around 12% of the Ugandan population lives in urban areas where piped water is in use. And also the government policy is to extend the water outside. You remember the 7 towns water project, and
it's been revived now by the World Bank.
Yes,
after many years.
And the net effect of that is to have a healthy population which takes good purified water. I think it is unfair, and it is something which URA and the policymakers should take seriously. Much as I appreciate the revenue function as raised by Commissioner Doris, in this time round, let us look at other areas of expanding the tax base. Otherwise, water, there's a saying, water is life. It is not something which should be handled simply. So I think it is.
You still think they should remove it?
They should remove it. They should remove it.
Madam Akol.
I would like to comment on what Mr. Ssentamu said. Government certainly would like to extend the supply of water to a much wider population, but that's not a function or a factor of taxation. It is a factor of the efficiencies or the abilities of the organization, the entity that is being mandated to supply water.
All right.
For the past year, we've had VAT on water at 0. That meant that...
For only 1 year. It was there before you took it away for 1 year?
Yeah. Last year we had VAT at 0 on water, piped water. That meant that the consumer was paying VAT at 0%. The money that was... And because of that, URA was refunding National Water large sums of money. But in spite of that kind of arrangement, we've not seen any specific
expansion
in the water supply.
Right.
So what guarantees do we have? If you think that, if you argue, for example, that the tax on water, if it is removed, then government is going to extend the supply of water, it doesn't follow, because we've already had at least 1 year of that happening, and it's not happened. So I would like the public to realize that the extension of water supply is not a factor of taxation on water.
Maybe briefly, some people would say that maybe you could put the VAT on water into a fund, maybe a national water fund like you have the road fund, so you can extend piped water. Does that add up for you people?
I don't think so, because again, depending on
it's not your job, is it?
It's not our job, but depending on the priorities of National Water, they might want to rehabilitate existing infrastructure and make it more efficient before they actually expand. So that's not something that we can even guarantee.
All right, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. What is the latest about the tax measures announced by government in the national budget? Our guests are from the Uganda Revenue Authority, Ms. Dora Akol, Commissioner, Legal and Board Affairs at the URA, Mr. Jabil Senyo, Supervisor, Communications and Relations at the URA, and Mr. Ephraim Kaddu, Secretary General at KACITA. You two will be able to contribute to this discussion. Madam Akol, how do you justify the raising of the pay threshold?
Thank you. The raising of the pay threshold, I would say, has been quite timely. It's been over perhaps 15 years since the first pay threshold was set up, and we all know that 130,000 shillings per month 15 years ago is not the same kind of money we are talking about now. What the pay threshold actually does is to leave a certain amount of money to you and me that is free of tax, and basically leave that money available to you for consumption or disposable income. So 130,000 15 years ago is not 130,000 now, and because of that we've seen over the past, I believe, 5 years, there's been a cry, increase the threshold, and so that happened this year. The threshold has been increased from 130,000 per month to 235,000 per month, meaning that everyone has tax-free income up to 235,000 a month. So the intention of this is to enable people have a lot more money that they can spend, and with that you expect that there would be ripple effects on the economy. With more money to spend, there's a lot more that can come, and maybe that money can also come back in taxes, especially consumption taxes.
So the URA won't lose a lot of money by raising the threshold? Well,
we will lose some money as a result of raising the threshold, because when you compute and multiply, when you compute the difference between 130,000 to 235,000, there is an amount of money, and then multiply that by all the people that are paying income tax. There's certainly an amount of money that we are going to forego as a result of the raising of the threshold. The challenge then will be, where can that money be recovered from? And it's our mandate to ensure that administrative efficiencies are able to cover the shortfall, as well as a few of the tax measures that have been proposed. You will realize that an additional 10% of income tax has been levied on those that earn more than 150
the rich man's tax.
Yeah, that's the Warren Buffett tax. So that is just an effort to kind of bridge the gap. It doesn't cover everything, but it's just one of the methods that is being used to try and bridge the gap.
But of course, with the more disposable income, people will spend more on Coca-Cola, sports betting, and other things. So you can collect taxes from renewed activity in the economy elsewhere.
That's the idea.
Mr. Jamil.
As you may realize, me and you actually benefit from this amendment, you find that previously all of us, for example, were supposed to enjoy a tax-free threshold of 130, like my commissioner said, but now it has been raised to 235,000.
The taxpayer benefits.
We all benefit as employees.
The taxpayer, the tax collector?
No, the tax.
Yeah, let's look at the tax collector. The taxpayer, it's obvious they benefit. How about the tax collector?
The tax collectors. Now we are also looking at the 10% beyond the 10 million.
Let's talk about the rich man's tax right now.
And we are not looking specifically at only employees, all individuals.
Yeah, it's individuals
because these are individual rates. There are so many individuals who earn 10 millions and above
every month.
So for those ones, there is an extra 10%, which is expected to bridge this gap. But very briefly, like you benefit.
No, I mean, this is very, very clear. It's obvious you benefit. But let's talk right now about, let's forget about it. Let's talk about the rich man's tax. Who are you going to tax? The people who sell cows in the villages, matoke from their farms?
We are looking at income tax as specifically stipulated under the Income Tax Act in Section 4. Every person who has chargeable income.
Well, how will you find them? They sell milk from their farms. You never see them in Kampala.
We are on a drive currently to expand our tax base, and we also want to promote voluntary compliance. While we are here, we want to come away from the system of hunting for taxpayers, feel the obligation to comply, and we're also going to make non-compliance very costly. Very costly in the sense that the penalties may not be friendly. We are also going to schools to educate those young people right from primary. Tell them that, look, we need to build this country. We need to free this country from the economic chains that it's surrounded with. So if we are going to inculcate this into our masses, then we expect that compliance will actually improve.
Yes.
I would like to add that yes, people may not voluntarily come up, but because of the certain systems and efficiencies that we've put in place, it's going to be a lot easier for us to keep track of even those that do not come. For example, if a person supplies milk to Sami Agriculture, there's going to be a record somewhere in Samir that
is supplied milk to this.
And in Samir,
so one day you'll appear at his doorstep.
Absolutely, because we will have got
a loud knock on the door saying we're here.
In the process of dealing with Samir, we will have known that Mr. Kizito has supplied milk to the tune of this
one
amount.
Morning you think it's a customer.
And then yeah, so eventually it will roll out to even
and the
those
taxman is at the door. Mr. Kaddu, do you people like this rich man's tax? The traders.
The traders. I think fairness must prevail. That tax wouldn't be bad because we also want to develop this country. But I think it could be on the higher side. I wish it was slightly lower because...
What do you mean? They should not tax the rich people.
Okay, they should be taxed. But I think if they were taxed at half of that, say 5.
In some places it's 40%, my friend. What are you talking about?
Why am I saying this? One factor in developing entrepreneurship is in having disposable income for saving and put in investment. Because right now, the cost of doing business is high. As you know, everything is expensive, from transport to utilities, the rent, the cost of finance, the bank interest rates, all costs are high. Exchange rates on import, and the exchange rates, when they are high, we pay more in taxes. So we are paying a lot more elsewhere. Okay, even the man who is earning a salary and he's earning 10 million and above, even the cost of living now.
Life is difficult for him as well.
It's difficult for him as well.
Let me hear that again. Say it, look me in the eye and say
even the man who is getting 10 million.
Life is difficult.
It's difficult, if at all.
Sometimes they can't fill his swimming pool with water because...
If at all is to leave the salary and be able to invest. So what I'm saying is that his survival on the salary, it shouldn't be seen that, okay, since he's getting much higher, let us tax him much. Otherwise, he will never move into the investing bracket.
Madam Akol, defend this tax. The rich men are crying out.
Yes, the rich men are crying out, but I would like to say that one of the typical features of a good tax system is that taxes must be progressive. The higher you earn, the higher your taxes should be, because tax is an instrument to distribute income across the public. So it's not fair for someone who earns 1 million shillings to be paying the same amount of rate of tax as someone who earns, say, 500 million shillings a month. It's just not fair. That's not a good tax system. So the extra 10% has come in to tap that segment of the population that earn 120 million shillings, more than 120 million shillings a year, categorize them in their own category as people who are rich people, and then maybe not rich, but a lot who earn a lot more than most people, and then try and see what we can get out of that extra income that they earn. That's really just about redistributing, which is the intention of that.
Yeah, I mean, how do you intend to go on a campaign to tell these men and women paying taxes is a good thing?
We've already started going out, and some of our taxes are actually self-policing. Say VAT. When once we realize that you made supplies, say, to the government, then we demand, say, did you account for VAT, or was 6% withholding tax withheld? And we get that information. We are also partnering with some stakeholders, like KCCA, for purposes of getting information. And this information will be used to actually raise some assessments. But we wouldn't want to get to those levels. First degree, we are trying to promote voluntary compliance.
Preach hard to the men and women.
And we are trying to do this. Information has already been put on our website.
Yes.
Our website, www.ura.go.ug. Once you go to the notifications, you should be able to get all the literature that is there for you. And we are also trying to preach tax planning. How, for example, you stand to benefit by claiming withholding tax, and how you lose by running away from us. In so doing, we are not only collecting, but we are also trying to tell the business people there that, look, it is better for you to keep these good records, because besides taxes, you will use them if you want to acquire a loan. You will use the same records if you are cheated. You can use the same records to police your staff. So, and people, once they realize that it's good for them and they can survive as they pay taxes correctly. So we don't want to collect any shilling less, and we are only praying that they also help us not to collect a shilling more, such that we can exactly collect the right tax.
And do you think they'll comply? Some people are not, easily traceable. People sell agricultural produce, vegetables, bananas.
I just want to also make a clarification. It does not necessarily follow that everybody pays taxes, especially because the legislators were wise enough, and they gave us what we call the presumptive tax rates. They actually said if your turnover is between 0 to 5 millions, you don't pay any taxes a year, gross turnover. And between 5 millions to 20 millions, it has been fixed to 100,000 shillings, you can imagine. But what happens, because you don't comply, you realize that you may compromise somebody, say our officer, pay that officer 150, yet you were supposed to pay 100.
Much less.
Yet you are not supposed to pay. Then between 20 million shillings, and this is the informal sector, between 20 million shillings to 30 million shillings, the tax is the lesser of 1%, or 250,000 shillings. 30 millions to 40 millions, less of 1%, or 350,000 shillings.
And we're talking turnover now. Turnover, not profit.
40 million
gross
to 50 millions.
Gross turnover.
The tax is the lesser of 1%, or 450,000 shillings, whichever is less. In other words, you realize that it has been made much simpler.
Right.
And besides that, if you go to our website, you just have to input, say, your gross income or chargeable income.
The rest will come scrolling down.
The rest will be auto-populated, and the taxes will even be calculated for you.
Okay, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. We're going for a break. We'll be back.
You can pay, you can buy, pay your bills, fees. Send cash overseas. Pay taxi fees and salaries. Anything you need. Anything you need.
You can do anything with MTN mobile money. And now, for the first time in Uganda, you can even pay your electricity bills. Go to your MTN mobile money menu, select pay bills, select Umeme Touch Pay, and follow the prompts.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
John, Mike and I will go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight, what is the latest about the tax measures announced by government in the national budget? Our guests tonight, Ms. Doris Akol, Commissioner Legal and Board Affairs at the Uganda Revenue Authority, Mr. Jamil Senyonjo, Supervisor Communications and Relations at the URA, and Mr. Ephraim Kaddu, Secretary General at KACITA. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion or send a text message to 7197. That is Spectrum message, question or comment. Send it to 7197. Madam Akol, how do you determine tax exemptions?
The tax exemptions, if we talk about tax exemptions, the laws, both income tax laws, the VAT laws, provide for exemption regimes for certain sectors or certain activities. And so those are, the tax exemptions are done in line with the provisions of the law. For example, income tax on business income is exempt. The business income from educational institutions is exempt, and that's a function of law under the income tax law, as well as people that export a certain kind of products that have more than 80% of Ugandan input. They are also exempt from income tax. So that's a function of law.
Say that again.
The business income from educational institutions is exempt from income tax as a function of law. So that exemption has already been provided in the law.
Schools and
schools
don't pay tax.
And exactly. People that export finished goods that have 80% and more of Ugandan input, Ugandan inputs are also exempt from income tax, and that's a function of law. People that engage in agro processing are exempt from income tax. Those are just some of the exemption regimes that are in the law. The VAT law also has a number of them, and that's how we determine exemptions.
But some people say you mostly favor foreigners.
I'm not aware, because the provisions in the law do not specify who can benefit, that it has to be a foreigner, or it simply says a person that does this kind of business will not be paying tax on that income. So if indeed it's the foreigners that are taking advantage of it, I mean, we need to wake up to that fact and say there are opportunities in the law that maybe Ugandans are not taking advantage of. Can we wake up to those opportunities and take advantage of them?
Mr. Kaddu, is that a valid complaint that foreigners get the benefits?
Actually, it's the general opinion on the side of the private sector. But I can say this is, again, a question of enlightening us. There's a lot we don't know out there as taxpayers. And we appreciate the move to start giving us more information, like Mr. Senyonga has promised. We need to get a lot more information out there. Most people think that there is treatment foreigners, which is quite different. Even when it comes to refunds for VAT, foreigners get refunds, and indigenous people find it hard to get refunds. So it is important to build our capacity to keep books, our capacity to do formal businesses. It's still a challenge there, and it's affecting even our competitiveness. So I would say that much as the law is there, the exemption is there, even investment authority makes it clear that both foreigners and Ugandans,
They all qualify.
They all qualify in the same way, and actually it's softer for Uganda, $50,000 to get investment license, and $100,000 for the foreigners to get investment licenses. But all the same, indigenous people find it hard to accept these things, partly because the effort which has been made to enlighten us as the taxpayers has not been adequate. More should be done. I will add on the comment about literacy. Are you aware that most MBA classes,
Yes, the masters
some
of
people
business.
have not heard about taxation?
Oh, what do they hear about?
General issues, marketing strategy,
How to write a business plan.
business plan, feasibility studies, but
Marketing on a small budget.
many MBA classes, many universities, it is beginning to come up, but generally the issue of tax education has been lagging behind. This should be reversed.
Madam, I would like you to talk to us about the unfair tax on car importers. You've put aside their invoices and come up with your own figures. I'd like you to talk to us about that. But first of all, Jimmy.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a realistic example for you to make a judgment whether the foreigners are favored or not. In the Income Tax Act, Section 9 actually tries to define who a resident individual is, and one who is not a resident is actually defined in Section 14. But very specifically, if you look at the bans that have been the threshold of 235,000 shillings,
Yes.
non-residents do not enjoy that threshold. All their income from 0 to 335,000 shillings is taxed at 10%.
The diaspora boys and
In
girls.
other words, the residents have an advantage.
The diaspora people, when they send money here, they're taxed right from zero. Is that what you're saying?
No. I am talking about you said foreigners.
Yes.
The foreigners are who come to work here.
When you talk about residents, you mean nationals, citizens.
Yeah, the nationals. A resident individual
Tax
is one who
residents.
was a permanent home in Uganda.
Right.
One who has been in this country for a period of 186 days, or
6 months.
that's 6 months, or one who has been in the country for a period of 122 days for the previous 2 years.
4 months.
Previous 2 years. If that person has been in the country for a period of 122 days, that person is a resident. One who has not been in this country for that period is a non-resident as per Section 14.
Right. Even though you're a citizen.
Exactly. And I am saying the rates for the non-residents are not favorable compared to the resident rates.
So the residents are favored.
The residents
If you live here,
and besides, like if you are going to look at dividends, for example, a non-resident is taxed at 15%, and that's a final tax. You get. So for them, we tax them. We don't have the mercy. The only challenge that we have is that maybe they take time to learn our tax
you
laws.
don't have mercy there. Let's talk about the rich man tax a little bit. Again, know exactly who's going to pay this tax and how are you going to calculate it? And the people who say, how are you going to do that?
There are two ways to this. One, you can say income that is above 410,000 shillings.
Let's talk about the rich man's tax.
Yes, I'm
Warren
coming to
Buffett.
that. And above, tax it at 30%. Then get the excess of 10 millions and subject that to 10%.
Yes.
And then you add what you've computed from the 30% and 10%, and that's the tax.
And how will you find these men and women?
We
The people that earn more than 10 million shillings a month. A good number of them are people that can easily be reached.
Talk to us
And
about the
that's
salary men and
because
women.
there is a good number of them are salaried income earners. The other portion of them are people that are doing very well in business, and because of the way their businesses are performing, certainly they are already somewhere on the tax register. So it's not going to be very difficult to identify those that earn more than 10 million.
So you already have a role somewhere. You've done your homework.
Well, from the salaried earners, I can say yes.
How many are they?
I don't have the figures with me. I'm sorry, but we do have payrolls.
How much money do you
People
expect to get from them?
Pay as you earn. So we do have a roll of people who earn more than 10
There's a
million.
target you have for the rich man's tax. How much is that again?
Well, I do not have all the figures, but it is within the region of maybe 4 billion shillings.
And do you think it's going to continue rising as you get more into the net?
I think with the economy performing even better, people are going to be paying better salaries, and obviously a good number of people will be promoted into the 10 million and above per month category, and then more and more of that tax will be collected.
And you'll discover more who are eligible.
Yes.
Let's talk about this unfair tax on car import. As it keeps coming up, you explain, but it keeps coming up. Why do you put aside their invoices? A man buys a car at $8,000 from Japan, and you assume it's worth more than that?
Well, I would like to correct the impression that it's an unfair tax. First and foremost, the taxes on motor vehicles are standard 25%. What we actually do is the valuation. It's in the valuation of used motor vehicles. The background to this is that the valuation for import duty purposes is based on the GATT valuation code.
General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs.
Absolutely, and it allows us 6 methods of determining values on goods for purposes of determining import duty. Now, when it comes
manufacturer, model, and so on and so forth.
When it comes to used motor vehicles, the GATT valuation code allows you to use a value that is attributable to a motor vehicle of that, call it that particular characteristic. And in that characteristic, you're looking at the year of manufacture, you're looking at the origin, you're looking at the mileage, if it, usability, how used is it? Is it really used? The condition of the vehicle, things like those. Now, what brought about this scenario is that for some reason we were getting varying values of similar vehicles, invoices being presented on the same day, within the same hour, for the same vehicle, with totally varying
The
figures.
same vehicle or the same type of vehicle?
Same type of vehicle,
Right.
I'm sorry, with totally varying invoice values.
Right.
So the question became, which of these invoice values, if everyone
Which report
says,
should you believe?
which report should you believe? In order to bring in some level of certainty, we have done our research and come up with a database of what the indicative motor vehicle values for used motor vehicles are, and that is the valuation method that we're using.
Maybe before we hear from the listeners, Jamil, you're taxing sports betting and gambling. Give us some detail on that very briefly.
Sports betting and gambling, it has become a lucrative business, especially for our youngsters.
We know about sports betting.
And
become a serious industry.
If you have earned, whether it's through gaming and pool betting, you should account for taxes. You should pay taxes. Simple. And we realized that people are making good money there. So the rate was previously 15%, and it has been raised now to 20%. And we are looking at the net. We used to actually tax the gross, but now we are looking at the net. We are allowing you the expenses that you have incurred in the production of that income.
How about the tax on treasury bills and bonds? It will discourage foreign investors into our government paper market. What do you think?
I'm not sure that might be a correct statement of that. There is an increase in the tax on treasury interest and from treasury bills from 15% to 20%. That's the proposal that has been made. The reason for this is that over the past number of years, the investment in treasury bills has grown significantly. And remember, at the beginning I said that government has to get some money to balance its budget. So some of the tax proposals that are put in are revenue earning proposals. So when the government notices that a particular segment of the economy is growing, it provides an opportunity for the government to earn income from that.
Right.
So investment in treasury bills provided such an opportunity, and with the government thought it wise to just put in that little extra 5%. I do not believe that the extra 5% tax on the interest will be so prohibitive as to stop investment in our government paper market.
Yes, Mr. Kaddu, before we hear from the listeners.
I would like to request government not to get tempted.
Yes.
Because of the extra revenue which is going to come from taxing for the bills.
Yes.
To be to benefit to encourage treasury bills more. Because at the private sector, one challenge we have got in getting the financing
Yes.
investment
Yes.
that we've been crowded out.
Yes.
Because commercial banks
Of the treasury bills market.
No. You know, commercial banks have an option of either lending.
They choose to invest in government paper.
Lending money.
So they don't consider borrowers like you.
Borrowers.
So I think they should reduce it a little bit.
So I think as an option of getting revenue, much as it can generate revenue.
Yes.
From the bonds and so on, taxing them. I'm saying, let it not be a temptation for government.
Administratively, you think it's better to have fewer treasury bills?
Yeah, fewer treasury bills. So that banks
can lend to people like
lend
you.
to people like us who want to invest. Yes.
Let's hear from the listeners. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. Our numbers 041 4348 111. 0312260390, 0312261390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Spectrum, hello? Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. Your name, sir?
Yeah, thanks for hosting the guest to the studio. Jim is the name.
Yes.
I want.
Spectrum, hello? Hello, please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, Patrick, calling from
Yes, Patrick. Here's your calculations on life. Yes, sir, your name?
from Dora.
Come again with the name?
I am Jude from Dora.
Yes, Jude, please go on. All right. This is yes. Yes, sir. Your name?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Jimmy is my name.
Yes, Jimmy.
From here, just
Spectrum alert. Okay, let's take our final caller. Spectrum alert.
yes. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. Your name?
Dora, this is Daniel. My complaint.
All right. Let's get back to the studio. Madam Akol.
Thank you. Jimmy, the first caller mentioned something about the service delivery after money has been collected. I would like to say that in the budget speech, the minister starts by giving accountability of how the previous year's revenue was spent, and statements, for example, that we completed this road, we completed this, we built a number of health centers, statements like those are common in the budget speech. So accountability for money that has been collected is always presented. But I would also like to invite the public to recognize that the changes that are actually being made. When you travel, for example, on the Mbarara Road, do you not recognize that that is investment that the government has made in infrastructure? Where do you think that money comes from? When you look at schools or even health centers that are being built, this is the money that is being collected. And so yes, you might not have a true picture of everything, every coin that was spent by the government, but on average you're able to say that the taxes that have been collected have done A, B, C and D, if you took some interest in knowing that. Patrick asked how could he access the pay calculation online. We are able to provide the pay calculations to him if he calls us on. We are not able to put out the formula online because people have different income levels. So your own computation will be specific to you and your level of income. But if he calls us on the toll-free call,
You don't even have a formula that.
No, we do have a formula, because then you start by taking off the tax-free income, and then you apportion, depending on the balance, you apportion the
So one can
available,
calculate it on their own.
Yeah, because we have 4 tax bands, maybe now I can say 3 tax bands: the 10%, the 20%, and then the 30%, and then the extra 10%. So depending on your level of income, the formula is going to be a little different.
Right.
So it's important for each person to look up their own income and call us, and then we'll give them the correct computation. We are able to do that. Jude from Tororo asks about income tax. How do you tax income from people working in private companies? The formula for taxation, especially for pay as you earn, does not distinguish between whether you work in a public company or private company. It's your income stream that determines what kind of tax you're going to pay. He mentions that he earns 150,000 a month and pays 30,000 tax.
That was history. It's not going to
That's
happen
not
again.
possible. That's not possible
That is
because
the old regime.
even in the past it was not possible, because 130,000 of that income is not taxed.
So it's only
tax-free.
30,000 that is
So it's only the 20,000
All right.
that was taxable at 10%. So there is no way he should have been paying 30,000
All right.
tax.
Okay.
I'd also like to inform the public that on the e-tax profile, you're able to check whether your employer is remitting the pay as you earn that they deduct from you.
You can check that.
You can check that. If you have registered for taxes and you have a tax identification number, you have a profile or you have a ledger within URA, and you're able to go to your account and track the income that your employer has deducted from you and see whether it has been remitted to URA and what amount has been remitted. I would like to encourage people to do that more. He talks about the small businesses, tax on small businesses. I think here I would like first of all to make a distinction between the URA revenue that is collected by URA and the dues that are collected by the local government authorities. That's going to be very helpful in distinguishing between the 500 shillings per day on the Mayuni stand and then the income tax on the small businesses. A typical small business like the one that he described should be paying presumptive tax. I would encourage Jude to stop paying bribes, because indeed he may actually be paying
more than
a bribe when he's not supposed to be paying tax, so he may be paying a bribe more than the
Finally,
tax
before we go, Daniel said, why don't you gazette these values and standards?
The values are updated quite regularly, so it's not very prudent to be gazetting them, because then, but they are available at customs. They are available at our offices. All the value guidelines, the indicators that we use are available to the public, and if they are requested for, they will be provided.
Okay, we have to go, but finally, Commissioner Akol, will Kiprotich cash be taxed as he returns from London tomorrow morning?
I would like to state that anyone that earns income that falls within a taxable bracket is liable to paying tax.
This man won a gold medal for 40 years.
That's why I said that's why I use the word is liable to pay tax. I would also like to mention that there are circumstances under which the law allows exemptions or waivers. That's not an exemption. It is a waiver. So we do not know yet which direction we are going to, but until we are advised otherwise, we ought to be looking at if he has earned income by virtue of winning a gold medal, we need to.
Well, he doesn't earn income, but he could earn royalties, and there's a fundraising going on for him. Mr. Kaddu, very briefly before we go.
Yes, I would think regarding that young man.
Yes, you think they should not be?
As a policy, there's no tax on sports vehicles, especially made vehicles for sports use.
Yes.
Vehicles which come as sports
motor rally
vehicles. Why can't we exempt this young man that income? So I've done it under the absolute regime.
We leave it at that. They'll think about it overnight and maybe decide by the time we wake up tomorrow. Maybe they'll know exactly why. Thank you very much, Need, for coming out here, guests. Miss Doris Akol, Commissioner, Legal and Border Affairs at the Uganda Revenue Authority, Mr. Jamil Senyonjo, Supervisor, Communication and Relations at the URA, and Mr. Ephraim Ssentamu Kaddu, Secretary General at KACITA. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond, Kizito Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow. Up next is the news in English.
Hello, Mommy. I need nice shoes.